Hey guys, it's Michelle, and I want to welcome you to the newly relaunched Women Entrepreneur Success Show. This is something I am so excited to have you guys take part in. We are still kind of getting used to our new format, and it's still brought to you, obviously, by Women Who Wow, the premier coaching and mentoring platform for the seriously driven woman entrepreneur. Today, we have Dr. Amy Strong, who's going to be joining us, and you're going to love her. If you consider yourself a driven woman, if you've got huge goals but refuse to follow that stepfirpreneur system that everybody else is pitching out there, and you want to be more than busy and broke, you want to have purpose and profit, definitely message me about joining Women Who Wow if you haven't already. Before we bring Dr. Amy on, I want to have a little micro moment together, you and I. These micro moments are just made to kind of challenge your thinking. And today I want to take you back to yesteryear, right? I want to take a look. I want us to remember what selling looked like before we got lazy with the internet, right? Like I want to remember what we used to have to do to sell stuff. I don't know if you remember, but basically I'm 42 years old. And even when I was a kid, things were sold mainly in three ways, right? So the first way is direct mail. You would get something that somebody wrote, tested headlines, tested, anything about the copy, put into the mail, put a stamp on it, sent it to you, and then you would be asked a direct question like, check this box if you want to subscribe or whatever. The second way people sold back then was by phone, where someone, and I actually did this for a time as a teenager, would sit in a room and dial for dollars with a pitch in one hand, a phone in the other that you were tied to at the desk, and you would get hung up on 70% of the time, and the other 30% of the time you were frantically searching for page 2 of the script in total shock that somebody didn't hang up on you, or worse, right? So people had to either mail something, call someone directly and invite them to buy, and or door to door with a presentation and a pitch, right? This is how sales were made. And it was direct. It was nose to nose or toe to toe, or it had a very specific ask. But online, we've kind of gotten a little bit lazy, right? And we mistake like marketing and selling. And we almost, not you, but maybe someone you know, we almost make it the prospect's job to sell themselves. We think us showing up and just like putting something out there or sharing a couple quotes or, whatever, we feel like that's selling. It's not. That might be marketing if you're doing it well, but we need to have some direct asks, right? As Zig Ziglar said, the timid salesperson has skinny kids, right? So you don't want to be timid. I really want you to consider how you can make have a more direct approach in your own sales strategy just for a week, right? Let's kind of go back to yesteryear. Let's actually invite people, ask people to email them directly and invite them to work with you. All right, I want to bring on our special guest. I'm going to try to do this right now while I introduce her. Okay, not working. Hold on. Here we go. Bring Amy. It's you. While that's working, I want to, hey there.
Hey.
I want to introduce Dr. Amy Strong, and she's a strategic planner and founder of the Solver Space. I love that name. I've always loved
Thank
that
you.
name. She has
Thanks.
spent 20 years solving problems, planning strategies, and building a vision to the highest levels of government, military, and the private sector. She takes the art of the strategic plan out of the war rooms and boardrooms and into your life, so she can actually bring the Solver Space to you. Her exclusive and proven methodology blends strategy and tactics to help high-performing professionals take their biggest dreams and put them right into their daily planners. And
Yeah.
I am so excited to have you here. How are you doing today?
I am great. It's so exciting to be here. This is such a little treat.
Oh, good. I've been looking forward to it. And I love your background, by the way.
Oh, yeah. This is my office. Yeah.
I love it. I don't think
Thank
I've ever
you.
talked to you in your office.
I
Right?
know. I'm always
Like in
like
the
a coffee
kitchen.
shop. Yeah. Right. My car, whatever.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, I think you would know this, but I feel like you and I just immediately connected. Like you
Yeah.
just get things instantly. You're an immediate action taker, which I totally respect. And I just love the way you do like life and business and marriage and divorce and parenting. I mean, you exude what it means to be Dr. Amy Strong, right?
Thank you. Yes, I try to look at it that way. Yeah.
So tell me, you've been in business for yourself now for 10 years. You have a goal of going full time in your business because you
Yes.
have actually like the most enviable corporate position ever. So do you want to tell people about that?
Yeah,
Because honestly,
sure.
I think people would hire you to help them get what you have in your career.
Yeah, so I've been with a defense contractor with the same company for, I don't know, almost 15 years now. And over the past 5 years, I have done that working from home. And that's just something I negotiated with my supervisor. And I'd be happy to talk to anybody about that who wants to, but it was important to me for many reasons. I got divorced about 5 years ago. It was important for me to conserve my energy and conserve my time. I didn't need to be commuting in a car every day. And I wanted to be there when the kids got off the bus, right? And so I can do that now working from home with my 9 to 5. I have a very flexible schedule with that where I'm just really clear and upfront that my client satisfaction is number one to me. And as long as I'm serving my clients, my supervisor at my day job is super happy. And
I
so
love
then I can work the hours that I want to work. And then I've also been able to build this business kind of on the side with the time that I have left over. So it's been really a blessing to be able to work in a way that I've constructed and architected myself.
Yes, I
Yeah,
love that. It's truly a life by design.
it
It's
is.
it's just so I love that you always seem to stare whatever is in your face and you face it with absolute courage and with
Mm.
grace and dignity. And I'm curious though, when you went in to talk to your boss
Hmm.
about you know working from an office to all of a sudden working from home, were you nervous about that? Like, how did you approach that?
I think I would have been nervous about it 10 years ago. I've gotten to a point, I think, in my own self confidence that whenever I go into a negotiation like that, I go in with a certainty that this is what I deserve, that
Good.
I'm not asking for something. I'm not asking to buy the entire company. Sometimes I'll even play that game. Like, what are the crazy things I could be asking for? And I'm
Oh,
not
that's awesome.
asking for that, right? So it's stuff. Telework is something that people do. My clients are all over the world, right? So there were all these reasons for this is doable and I deserve this and I can execute this. I know I can execute this. Getting really solid on what you can deliver. That it wasn't even really a negotiation with him. It was more just saying, hey, this is something I really want. I've thought it out. Here's the plan. Here's what could go wrong. Here's how I'm mitigating those risks, right? You just kind of you you ask the questions and answer them before he can even get to them, right?
I love that.
Yeah. And it just seemed like a no-brainer from both of our perspectives. It cuts down on his overhead too. So
I love that. And I think it can definitely apply to sales for people watching,
mm,
right? Because a lot of times people are very hesitant to go and ask somebody to buy from them.
right,
And it's like you're asking for their firstborn child or, like something outrageous, right?
right.
And it's like, wait a minute, you're just inviting them into a professional relationship with you, right? Like
Yeah.
you're just giving them this option. And I feel like people overcomplicate it, overthink it. And I just love that. I've never thought about that with sales, but I hope anybody watching now and also watching the replay could definitely apply this in a way that's like, hey, let's figure out, like, I'm not asking for like something outrageous or illegal or whatever. Like
Right.
I'm just inviting them to work with me.
Right.
And you mentioned a couple of things. Like one, you went in thinking that this was a normal ask, right?
Hmm.
That it'd be kind of silly to say no. And that it should be a no-brainer. And
Hmm.
I see that in sales a lot. I'm like,
Right.
make it like a hell yes offer. Make it to where it's something that, like, who refuses that sales pitch? Who says no to that, right? So
Right.
that's what you went in. I'm so glad I asked that question. I was wondering
Yeah.
if you, back then, 5 years
Right.
ago, would have been
Right.
like nervous about that. So
Yeah.
tell me about your hardest lesson, like the hardest lesson you've learned about what it takes to succeed and sustain in business.
This was really new for me. Starting a business was really new for myself because I've always just been a technical person. So I'm a scientist by training, and I've always just kind of worked within a corporate structure or an academic structure. And you give me a question and I go find the solution to it, right? And I was an overachiever big time in that structure, to the point where I never even accepted a challenge unless I knew I could 100% rock it. And looking back on that part of my career, I have some regrets of things that I didn't risk and try to do because I wasn't sure that I could ace it right from the beginning, right? If you don't stretch a little bit, you don't grow. And so this was a stretch for me because entrepreneurship is filled with a lot of stumbles and falls and failures, whatever you want to call it. Lots of bumps and bruises and scrapes. I think I was listening to a podcast earlier, and you mentioned it's a really messy kitchen, right?
Yeah.
It's not corporate America. It's not, here's your salary and here's your project, and everything is all very aligned. It's really kind of getting in there and rolling up your sleeves and figuring out as you go. And I had to allow myself the space and the grace to fail, and not even fail like I did,
Yeah.
lose $10,000 or something. I mean, it wasn't even like failure in like the worst sense of entrepreneurship, but just like try something and it didn't work, or offer something and no one signs up for it, or whatever that looks like. To me, those are big. Those can be big ego like knockdowns, right? And I
Yeah.
had to just allow myself over time to say, okay, here's what I'm taking from that, here's what I'm learning, and here's what's moving forward. And it's not so much of a pivot as it is like a honing, right? Like, so sharpening, you just sharpen what worked and you throw out what didn't, and then you keep going and you just iterate and iterate and iterate, and just allowing yourself to be imperfect, allowing your business to be imperfect, allowing for the lessons to just continue to come without immediately saying, well, I'm just not good at this. No one's, it would be so easy to do that because when you're in business, a solopreneur, it's just you staring yourself in the mirror every day
Yes.
and having to reconvince yourself, I still believe in what I do. I still believe I'm good at this. I still believe I have an audience. Oh, it's Wednesday and I still believe it, right? You are your own, you have to be your VP of marketing and your VP of operations and everything all rolled into one. And so to allow myself the grace to do that really clumsily and still enjoy the process and grow from it was kind of my biggest hurdle.
Yeah, I love that. I love it so much. And in fact, the first time, I'll never forget, like, this, one of the first books that I read from Dan Kennedy. And I forget which one it was, but in it, he said that he was, facing like bankruptcy. His car was being repossessed, like downstairs outside of his office. His like staff are looking at him like, are we okay? Or, because, they're thinking like, is my paycheck going to clear?
Right.
And he in this book he said, I'm walking through and I'm reassuring, oh, we're fine, we're fine, we're totally fine. And then he's like, and I get in my office and it had the bathroom, he's like, and I'm looking in the mirror like, you can do it, you can do it, it's going to be fine. And I remember thinking, because I had such a, and still have such a big view of this man, and I
Mm.
remember thinking, if he had to do that, like, why do I
Mm-hmm.
think something's wrong when I have to do that, right? Like,
Right.
and I think it's totally normal to have to, I've never really been corporate, to be totally honest. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
worked my way through college, like waiting tables and stuff, and I worked in social services. And after that, like, I've been an entrepreneur, but I've been a hustler my whole life. So
Mm-hmm.
I've always been able to, like, make money, or, figure out some, something to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had that in my corner. but it's the failing. You're like, well, I don't want to call it like, well, sometimes it is that, right? Like
Hmm.
you launch something and nobody buys, or,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Like it is. And it's like, I'll tell my kids sometimes, I'm like, are you, when I hear them say things that are like hesitations to try or whatever, I'm like, oh my God, I fail like 87,000 times before lunch. And that doesn't
Yes.
include the times I fail you as a parent, which you are quick
Yes.
to point out to
Yes.
me, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, teenagers will let you know, like, you know, not only that you are the worst mom in the world, but also like why and all the myriad of
Hmm.
reasons why
Hmm.
you're feeling
Yes.
good. So
They have
I think
receipts.
it's so important to be able to do it. And I love that you said I gave myself the grace to do it clumsily. And
Yeah.
I don't know where we kind of got off on this idea that after a certain age or at a certain point in our life, everything we do should be super smooth and graceful. And you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
everything you're doing, if you haven't done it in ever, like there is this sort of a, you know, a clumsiness to it. And we have to
Yeah.
be okay with that, right?
Right. I think it's actually, it gets to the root of the kind of work that I do with my clients now, because I always say, like, your whole life is scripted out for a big chunk of it, right? The first part of it is education. There's no real question, right? You don't even have to think about it. You're just going through your education until you decide it's over, right? And then as soon as that is done, pretty much for a big chunk of the population, there's the get married, get a job, get a house, have the kids things. Again, all scripted. And you
Yeah.
might diverge from that script, but it's the books are there, right? The binder has already been set up. That's generally a life that you can lead if you have
The
no idea
planning
what to
guides are out
do.
there.
Right. There are websites for how you do all of those things. And then I think you get to a certain point where either you don't want to do that, right? So you're early in your career and you're like, no, like house, marriage, job, kids is not for me. Or you've done that and then you're mid-career and you're like looking around like, is this it? Is this why I'm here? And no one teaches us, after education is over, no one teaches us how to experiment, how to take risks, how to mitigate for risks that could happen. You know, if we want to do something big and bold, how do you plan ahead to make sure that you're executing at the highest possible level of success, right? We're not taught any of that. We're not taught how to reinvent ourselves. We're not taught strategy. We're not taught how to operationalize our dreams. And so we get this feeling of, you know, like we're falling off a cliff whenever something isn't going exactly as planned and exactly smoothly, because that's the binder that we were given from the beginning, right? And it's just, it doesn't even seem socially acceptable really to take those risks or dream big vision, because it's, like I said, it's clumsy. And so when I do strategic planning with my clients, it's like, let's at least try to make it look crystal clear in a plan that you can then kind of, it's like creating a scaffolding, right? Like you still have to
Yeah.
climb the mountain and there's still the cliff at the end, but at least you have this framework for, okay, we've thought about this. These are the steps we're going to take to try to avoid that risk. These are the steps that we're going to take to just power through that risk and make it happen. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, I think that's just so perfect and important for people to, you know, listen in and start to figure out like maybe where they have been sitting back, like avoiding
Mm,
looking clumsy. You know,
mm.
just a true confession, right? I just launched my podcast today and
Yes,
I
it's so
didn't have
good.
any clarity. I was so excited about it, but I didn't have any clarity about it for one. But I think too, in the back of my mind, there was this you know, I've been around the online marketing space for 2 decades now, right? Like I am truly a grizzled veteran in this space.
Hmm.
And so the idea of being like a clumsy newbie,
Right.
you know, wasn't super fun, right?
No one
And in
likes that.
fact, like I put it out there and I'm listening to it and like there's something going on with like I'm not doing it myself, but like my audio of the actual podcast is different than the introduction. It kind of goes down. And so I was like, well, that shouldn't be. So I'm messaging the guy who's like editing and doing all that. Lindsay, you got an email from me about the podcast. I'm super pumped about it. You can look it up at the Daily Hustle, Michelle Pippin. You can do that on iTunes. But anyway, but I was like, it was uncomfortable to be clumsy. And so
Right.
I had to just kind of let that go, let that like, not that I want to be perfect in my regular life, but I'm confident here, but when you do something new, you have a desire. I'm no perfectionist. I've never been a perfectionist. And yet I'm doing something new and it kicked in, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing. And I have no idea what I'm doing, right? So
Yeah.
I think we need to make it okay. And I also think we need to make it okay, for people to stop referring to like their goals as as a dream. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's like, oh, wouldn't that be nice? Or, or even, I hear people in front of kids, and I think about it when it's in front of my kids, right? I think about things that are said, and I don't want them to internalize them. Like,
Mm.
yeah, he's so good, or she's so good. She hates her job, but she knows we need it, or, and I'm like, ooh, like I'm like thinking like conversation time with my kids, right? And
Right.
even my oldest, she's 21. And so if there's like a, issue, and she's a very hard worker. And, I'm like, listen, there's no shame in like starting over and finding something else. Like, let's just, now's the time. Let's go for it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think society kind of steers us into that secure, route.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if, I think everyone is just walking around afraid. That's just kind of my, that's just kind of my answer to everything that's wrong with the world, right? And I think that I'm the most risk averse person ever. I don't take the tags off of mattresses, right? Like I don't break rules, and I don't take big risks, but I guess the analogy that I use with my clients a lot is, okay, if you just got in a car and started driving and you didn't have your GPS on, you didn't have a map, and you had no idea, you were just like, I want to go to Seattle, but you just had no idea even which way to point your car, right? That's foolish. Okay. And I think that's what people think of when they think of like, oh, you have these big dreams and how is that even going to happen? But you don't have to just get in a car and start driving. No one does that anymore. You get in your car and you sit. After you do your seatbelt, you put in the little coordinates, right? You put in the address that you're trying to go. And your phone says, I've got it. Here is our plan. This is what we're going to do. And then you can kind of turn your brain off, right? And not think about it and enjoy the drive, and let that plan that you took the 5 seconds to generate, let the plan take you places. Sometimes your GPS is wrong and it takes you down a dead end, or there's construction. Okay, the plan doesn't always go perfectly executed, but you can work around that, right? You take the next turn, you miss that exit, you take the next one, right? So, having the plan, to me, makes it anything possible, right?
And
I can,
also, I think knowing the destination, right? So like,
yeah,
to me,
yeah.
as long as you've plugged in your destination, then
Mm-hmm.
it's not a big deal. Like sometimes you get frustrated when GPS is rerouting you or whatever, like
Right,
sticking with that analogy, but it's and Lindsay just said rerouting, right? Like sometimes you get
right.
frustrated, but you don't think like, oh my God, am I never getting there, right? It's
Yes,
just like, oh, when I go to visit my daughter in college now, and like the GPS always tells us to turn down like Lily Road, and Lily Road doesn't exist anymore, but we learned like Cherry Road does exist, and that cuts through, and it's just like this small town and that you have to drive through. So it's like not the end of the world. But I feel like in business sometimes we feel like it's the end of the world, right? It's like we
mm-hmm.
have a hiccup, or we get that far and the road is blocked for us, or there's construction, or life happens, or we take a little bit of a spill, and we think it's a sign of something, right? Like we think
Right.
like, well, this must not be for us, or what have you. And I want to ask you in a minute like what you tell your clients about that. Like for me, I tell them, two things. Like one, it's a sign that you're human, right? And
Sure.
two, if you're willing to quit now, it's a sign you weren't really all in. Like you were kind of
Right.
trying it out, like you were seeing how it went, but you weren't like in, And so
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's an indicator of those two things and nothing else. It's certainly not an indicator of our future. And I was listening to somebody talk, and it's like anybody that you are listening to, anybody who you are learning from has had so many failures along the way, right? Like just so many failures. And it's just so incredible, that we think that we should get there with none of those hiccups.
Yeah,
What do you tell
absolutely.
your clients about that? The rerouting when, you have a plan, but there's construction in the road.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing is you never decide, so in your analogy going to visit your daughter, you never decide, oh, I got rerouted, so I'm not going to go visit my daughter anymore. Right?
Right,
Like that's
right.
never it never is it's not on the table. And the reason is because you were very clear about your purpose and your mission going into it. You're going to go see your daughter. And if you're like any other mother I know, there's nothing that will stand between you and going to visit your daughter, right? So I always have my clients establish their purpose, mission, and vision ahead of time. And then it's
Real
very,
quick, one of my
yeah.
daughters on the live stream right now, and Summer, we were
Oh,
talking about you.
hey, Summer. Um, and so then it's very simple because if you're going to choose to add a new thing to your life, or if you're trying to evaluate a hiccup that's happened and what should I learn from it, what does it mean? All you have to do is reflect it on to your mission and vision and purpose. And if it's still aligned with those things, then it was the right thing to do. If it's not aligned with those things, if you realize like, oh, I have gone down the absolute wrong road, I don't even know where I'm at, and I'm very uncomfortable here and it is very painful, and you look at the road and you're like, this wasn't even going to get me there anyway, then fair game, get off that road, right? Let's go find a different one. Let's find a different way to get there, right? Everything has to be able to align and reflect back for why you are here in this time and place. I just firmly believe that everyone on this planet is here right now for a specific purpose and reason. You have something to serve. And it's just a matter of finding that and then pursuing it and checking against it. Just constantly just check back. Okay, does somebody wants me to join the PTA? Is that aligned with my ultimate purpose and mission? Maybe it is. Maybe you want to be the most involved parent at your child's school. Awesome. Be the president of the PTA. This lady is not.
That was not me.
That's
I
not.
love the paper
No.
products to the school
Yes.
party,
Yes.
right?
Right. So, and that's a great point. So if your goal was really you want to become the most involved parent in the school, then absolutely join the PTA. But if it was just that you want to be a contributor to your kids' education in some way, you don't have to join the PTA. You buy the paper products for the holiday party, right?
Right.
So, and then that's aligned, right? So it's just a matter of getting a measuring stick for your life and seeing what's going to fit, what's going to contribute, what's going to serve yourself, what's serving you, and getting clarity around that.
I just want to point out, regardless of who I offend, that before Marie Forleo said everything is figure outable, we
Ah,
had Dr. Amy Strong in the
that's right.
solver space.
That's
And I think
right.
you guys can see her mentality of like, yeah, we'll solve that, right? Like, what's the problem we're solving?
Yes.
Bring it into the solver
Yes.
space. And so I just love that so much, right?
I
Because
was
the
so
solver,
mad when that book came out because I was like, I say that everything is figure outable.
right? Right?
Hmm.
Who knows? She could be watching what you're
She could
doing.
be. She could be.
But yeah, like the solver space is just so perfect. And I feel like that is such an amazing message, right? That whatever's going on, like bring it into the solver space.
Yeah.
Like you said, that's what your clients do with you, right?
Right.
So whether they are looking for, just like a life plan or a career plan or whatever, right? Like they come to you, they come into the solver space,
Yeah.
and whatever comes up, there's a solution for that.
Yeah. And I help you think through it. And I firmly believe that the solution's already inside you. That's my framework that I work from. So I'm just here to hear you and see the patterns with you and figure out what you need to do based on the available information. I'm basically a scientist for your life.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, where can people find you?
So anywhere tagged at the Solver Space. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook at the Solver Space, and then it's also www.thesolverspace.com.
I love it. Her website is worth checking out, actually. And
Thank
I
you.
use the solver space interchangeably with the solving space. So please go to the solver space to
Yes.
find Dr. Amy Strong. So do you have any final words of advice before you wrap up?
I just want to reiterate that getting clear on your purpose, and I have one client actually who carries it around in her binder or planner. So I had her write her mission and vision and purpose out. And before she opens her calendar to book something, she opens to her purpose and mission. And
Oh,
she,
that's perfect.
right? And she reads that and is able to say, yes, this is consistent, this aligns, this is still clear with my purpose. Okay, then I will open my calendar, right? So get clear on that, because you're going to get challenged on things. Is that really what you want to do? And whatnot. And if you have clarity up front on your strategy, then you can make anything happen tactically.
I love that. And I
Yeah.
used to say, like, if you haven't said yes to anything, it'll be hard to say no to anything, right? So like we need to say
Right.
yes to something so that
Yes.
it makes it easier for us to say no. And I honestly believe that success is created a lot faster when you say no a lot more, right? Like we have
Mm.
to create space for success. So thank you so much, Dr.
Thank
Amy
you.
Strong from the solverspace.com. And everybody watching live as well as the replay, I'm loving the new format of our show. So if
Yay.
you want more, subscribe to our page. Go to find my podcast on iTunes. I think it's on Stitcher too, but I don't even know what Stitcher is. So if you use it, find it. It's the Daily Hustle for women entrepreneurs, or the Daily Hustle with Michelle Pippin. And I look forward to seeing you guys on another week with another guest on the Women Entrepreneur Success Show. You guys have a great day. Bye,
Thanks.
guys.
Bye.